If you are a student growing up in Scotland, England, Ireland or Wales, they have a thing called the Duke of Edinburgh's Award. And it's something that the Queen's husband, Prince Philip, gives out to high school students. And it takes you 5 years to earn this. The very first year, if you do, you have to do all sorts of projects. You have to go camping, you have to volunteer, you have to, all sorts of things. If you get through the first year, then you get this bronze award sent to you in the mail. 2 more years of community service and all sorts of different things. If you manage to do that, then you get this silver award. But if you manage to go the whole 5 years and complete some pretty tough assignments, then you're invited to go to Buckingham Palace and you're presented with the gold Duke of Edinburgh's Award. Well, I was able to do that. I was able to do the whole 5 years and then go to the palace and receive that award. It was quite an amazing day. But the last thing that I had to do, I almost didn't make it. It was quite a challenge. What I had to do was to go to a range of mountains called the Cairngorms, way up in the north of Scotland. And you had to survive for 4 days and 3 nights in a single tent, no matter what the conditions were. You weren't allowed to take, you had to find ways of starting a fire naturally. And at the end of the time, if that was your last thing and you completed it, then there was a place that you could go to in a little town called Aviemore, and they would stamp to say you completed it. So 3 of us did at that time, my friend Moira, my friend Linda, and I. We took the train way up into the north of Scotland, which is so beautiful. And the first day, we managed to walk about 12 miles, and we found a place where we could camp. We set up our tents and made some tea. We managed to get a fire going. No Scottish person can survive without a cup of tea before bedtime. But the second day, it was so much more difficult. A storm had blown in, and there was snow and icy winds in our face. And we only managed to go for about 5 miles. And we tried to find a place where we could pitch our tents. And it was so difficult. We tried to make a fire, and that night we were not able to. But eventually, round the side of the mountain, there was a little shade. And we finally managed to get our 3 tents up for the night. We decided we just wouldn't be able to make any food, but we would hope that the storm had passed by morning. So I crawled into my little tent, into my sleeping bag, and fell fast asleep. The last thing I read was Psalm 121. The Lord watches over you. He is a shield over you. Well, I woke up at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and someone was outside my tent. And I could tell by the shape, it wasn't Moira, and it wasn't Linda. And they were pressing right against the side of my tent. I was petrified. I didn't know what to do. And I tried to quietly call my friends, but they were fast asleep. Plus the wind was howling outside. So I thought, okay, the only things I have, I've got my Bible and I've got my flashlight. So I'm going to crawl out there, and with the Lord's help, I'll hit them with one or the other, the Word of God or my flashlight. So I managed to ease out of my tent, and I came face to face with a huge Scottish Highland sheep who had kind of fallen against my tent. And it was, yes, you know the commercial, I've fallen and I can't get up. So I tried to move this great big beast, but it wouldn't move. So I thought, what do I do? I'd remembered that earlier on, where we were trying to find a place to pitch our tents, there was like a tiny little cleft in the side of the mountain, just like a little cave. So I thought, I'll need to try and find that. So I pulled my sleeping bag out from underneath the big berth of the sheep. And I used my flashlight, and I looked to see that I was alone in the little cleft of the rock. I didn't want to be joining any other critters. And it was fine. So I put my sleeping bag up, I crawled in, and mercifully, I fell asleep. And when I woke up in the morning, and I looked out, it was spectacular. The storm had passed. The sun was shining on the snow on the mountains. It was one of the most glorious views I've ever seen in my life. I looked out, I could see for miles. And my psalm came back to me. He will not let you stumble. The one who watches over you will not slumber. What I realized that night was, there's some nights when we find it hard to sleep. There's some nights where we've got so much on our minds we don't know what to do. Maybe you face that in your life. Maybe you're struggling at the moment with something you're so concerned about. Do you know that you can go to sleep and that God watches over you? Do you know He never takes a nap? There's never a moment when he's not watching over you. And as I lay at the edge of that cave that morning and looked out as the sun shining on the brilliant new snow, I felt the Lord saying, Sheila, I was there in the storm as much as I'm there on this glorious morning.